Hello, Mr. Franklin, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so I think we'll be starting now without further ado. Okay, so like in the last class, we talked about, okay, we did an introduction to React, and I think after that class, I dropped something in the resource channel to actually help us, try to keep up to date with what we were supposed to learn in order to use or not to. Yeah, basically, in order to be up to date with what you have to learn to be able to do React. So, uh, I think, I don't know if you went through the materials I gave, both the one for command line and the one for what's it called? The one for command line and the okay, I think I sent links out for things you guys were supposed to read up on so that you guys will be able to use React. Please, if you went through it, can I see your hand up so I know how to this class? Okay, okay, all right, that's okay. This is a blessing. Yeah, this is good. All right, so thank you everyone. Those who were able to go through it. Those who were not able to go through it, it's going to be, well, I say, kind of difficult for you to catch along because most of the things and the terms we'll be talking about here are things that we are already that are going to be familiar to the guys who actually went through the material. Okay, so all right, so without further ado, we will be starting and yep, let us start. All right, so first things first, we'll be going through the basics of how to create a React application from scratch. And okay, so to do that, I'll be opening my terminal and I'll be going into my workspace folder. So first of all, let me check the list of my directories and then I'll be going to workspace. And inside workspace, I'll be creating a React app. And okay, quick question. What's the command for creating a React app? If anyone can remember from the last class.
MPX
Uh,
create.
okay, type it in the chat. Just type it in the chat. Let's see. All right, yes, MPX create React app and then the name of the app. Very good. So which means you guys did listen. Okay, so yep, we'll be doing that. NPX create React app. And I think we'll just call this app. Let's just say to do and enter. So I'm just going to have to give it some time. Let the app create and let everything go on. But then this is okay. Let's just be discussing while it's going on. So if you had any questions or things you wanted to, or things that were like confusing for you while reading that material I gave, you could just, put your hands up and then point out and then you see what was actually confusing for you. So anybody met with any roadblock? Okay, Blessing is saying, why does it take a long time to create since I installed it and installed in the global? Okay, now what happens is that, okay, Cecilia, if you check the resources channel, that's where the material was actually relayed. That's where I posted the materials. If you're not in the resources channel, you can add yourself to the resources channel and check. You'll see those materials there. Okay. You have to add yourself there first of all, Sha. All right, so let me get back to Blessing. Now, what happens is that whenever you create the Create React app, what it does is that it brings out a boilerplate code. So it's more like creating your whole folder structure automatically. So that's why it takes a lot of time, because most of the things that's actually done, if you're going to do them manually, you find that you're going to spend at least 2 hours doing them. Let's say, because first of all, you're going to have to create your folders, you're going to have to install Node. Okay, npm has to be running on your project first of all. So if you haven't installed Node, you have to do that, install Node, which comes with npm, and then you're going to have to create your folders, and then you're going to have to start downloading from npm the things you're going to need for the project. Let's say things like you're going to have to install React DOM. If you're going to be using routing, you're going to have to install most of all those things and use state and stuff like that. So most of those things actually take time to come up with. And then you're also going to have to set up Webpack. Okay, you're going to have to set up Webpack, and setting up Webpack no be beans. It's going to take you a whole lot of time to set up Webpack. Okay. Okay, you have to be connected to the internet to use MPX Create React app. But if you actually set it up globally, like you did, you don't have to be connected to the internet to do that. But using MPX Create React app is actually more advised, because that's where you get the latest dependencies on everything. Okay. Yes, those updates, that's why you have to use MPX. Okay. But then as a developer, data has to be your second friend. So it's one of those things you have to, flow along with as a developer. Okay. So just take it easy. All right. So I think our React app is almost done. So anybody else has any question?
Sorry, I have a question.
All right. Similarly, yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
okay. Sorry, I wanted to ask, what's the difference between a framework and a library?
Mm. The difference between a framework and a library. All right. So that's a tricky one. I'm not going to lie. For the thing is this, a library. Okay, a library is more like, how do I put it? Something that helps make a programming language easier to code with. All right. Now, let's say, for example, you have React on one hand. React is a JavaScript library. You have jQuery. If you've heard of jQuery, jQuery is also a JavaScript library too. Now, these two things actually make working with front end a lot easier. So a library is more like a lightweight tool that makes working with a programming language a lot easier. Now, why do we say so? Because a library doesn't come with much things. A library comes with little things, but then they actually facilitate your productivity whenever you're working. So as you're going to find out later on, you're going to find out that things like that actually, let's say things like libraries actually make work a lot easier for us. Meanwhile, a framework, okay, a framework like how do I explain this now? Okay, a framework is more like a full package. So the difference between a library and a framework is that a framework comes with a lot of things that a library doesn't come with. So like when working with React, I think I'll have to give an example here. The only thing that React actually comes with is just the React DOM and I guess the React with router. Most things you have to do in React, you have to make sure that you install them using npm. But if you're going to be working with things like Vue, so Vue is actually a framework built on JavaScript. So Vue is more extended. Vue can actually stand on its own. Okay. But meanwhile, React has to depend on JavaScript. Although both of them depend on JavaScript, but Vue is a little bit more broad than React. Same with Angular. Angular is also a framework, so Angular is also more broad. Um, Miriam, okay, Miriam is asking to explain extents in classes. Okay, so extents in classes is more like functions. So, okay, Miriam, can I actually answer your question a little bit later? Because if I try answering your question, it's going to take a while. Okay. I think one of the mentors could actually do that for me while I'll be handling this class and explain that for you. Okay. I would have loved to explain it, but trust me, it's going to be a little bit more tedious than I thought it would be. Okay, but in the meantime, Timilane, I hope I didn't confuse you with the answer because a framework is more broad than a library. Okay, so a
Yeah, all
library
right.
doesn't come. Yeah, a library doesn't come with much things though. For one other thing, I'm actually going to also advise. Try googling it. If you Google it, you might see a better definition or something that's actually going to list the differences between frameworks and libraries. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. So, okay, I think our project is already set up. So first things first, I am going to cd into the project that we just created. And to do that, I'm just going to do cd and the name of the app, which is to do. And this is it. Now we enter the app to do. So I'm actually going to open VS Code from my terminal. Okay. Now, if you've actually installed VS Code, yeah, blessing. Yes, that's good. If you actually installed VS Code, whenever you're using your command prompt, you could, or your terminal, whichever one you're using, you could type this command and VS Code is actually going to open. As long as you have Node installed, this code is actually going to work. So if you click enter, give it some time, and then voila, VS Code is open. All right. Okay, yes, I trust. And then this is our folder. Okay, so I hope you guys can see my screen very well. Okay, getting an answer will be good, so I know I am not losing you guys, or you guys are not losing.
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now this is okay. Let me take this off. So this is a basic React project setup. You have your node modules folder, you have your public folder, you have your src folder. Now this git ignore is for using git because git always comes pre-installed with React. Then you have your package log, package.json, and a readme file. So these are just the basic things that are actually in your project. So I'm actually going to be explaining this little by little from the top. So just in case you don't understand, you can actually, give feedback where necessary. So we know where you're actually having issues. All right. So, okay. Now, uh, this is how it's going to be done. All right, so let's do this and put this. All right, better. Okay, so the first folder we have here is the node modules folder. Now, the node modules folder is what comes with everything we need to work with React. Like everything that has to be installed uh, in the background is actually installed into the node modules folder. Now, as I'm opening it, you're seeing things like you're seeing Babel, you're seeing ESLint, CSS tools. Now, everything inside this node modules folder is what is actually being installed to be worked with. This is what you're actually going to use to work with React. Everything inside here. So even if you're going to install something later, it's actually going to be installed inside this node modules folder. And mind you, this node modules folder is very, very important. If the node modules folder is not here, nothing here will work. You're going to have to install, okay, you're going to have to do a command more like npm init before, so that the node modules folder comes out. Then you can now actually use this. So the node modules folder is actually related to the package.json file. Now, the package.json file is more like an ID, so it tells us everything about our project. Okay, from the beginning, the name of the project, the version of the project. Now, the dependencies used are more like the tools that we're actually going to be using to work in React. So we have React, React DOM, React scripts, you have Web Vitals, and you have testing libraries. So these testing libraries, we aren't going to be doing that today because it's not important at the moment. We're not going to be doing testing today. But then we'll be using React, we'll be using React DOM, we'll be using React scripts. Now, the second part, this scripts part, this is more like the commands we're going to be using to actually help us either start our project, build it, or test our projects. Please, wherever you don't actually understand, you could actually ask your questions in the chat, so you know you don't get lost. Okay, so if you do understand up to this point where I just explained, you could put your hands up, or you could just indicate by saying yes in the chat where I can see. I hope you guys understand what the node modules folder and the package.json file does. Okay, all right, so now I said the node modules folder is the folder where everything that's actually being installed in a React app resides. Okay, so if you're going to be working with React, this React here you're seeing here, React DOM, React scripts, everything you're seeing in these dependencies objects is actually a folder in this node modules folder. So if I actually open the node modules folder and I scroll down, you're going to see React somewhere. Let me scroll down. Let me see if I can actually get it. Okay. All right. So this is okay. Let me just give me a minute. All right. So this is it. You're seeing React. This is React, React App Poly, React Dev Utils, React DOM. So everything you need to work with, or everything you need to work with is actually inside the node modules folder. So that's why it's very important. You delete it, it's not like saying you're making your app handicapped. Your app will not work, okay, until you reinstall the project again, reinstall npm in the project again. That's when the node modules folder will come out, and then that's when you can now use it. So the package.json uh, file is more like a checklist of things that are actually installed, important things that you need So like when I opened the node modules folder, there were a lot of folders inside, but it's not all of them that we're using at the moment. So the ones that we're actually using, those are the ones that you see in the package.json file. I don't know if you understand. So more like React DOM, React scripts, these testing libraries. Now, even this start script, okay, this start script is more like what you need to be able to host your project using a live server, okay? Now, the package lock.json, all right. Okay, so it's still more of the same thing, but this time it's a more detailed one. But then basically, we don't usually use the package log or the package.json. Once everything you installed, once you've installed everything, you can actually just go there to check and see okay, that things are actually being installed inside. What's installed actually reflected, because if it didn't reflect in the package.json folder, which means it hasn't been installed yet. So that's what basically these two files are. But then after that, you have the next folder, which is the public folder. Now, the public folder is what everyone sees. So anyone who actually comes to look at your React app, it is a public folder that they see. So now, why do I say that? Because that's where the only file that they see actually is. So this index.html folder is actually the only folder, the only HTML file that you're going to be using. And with it, that's where you can see your title and everything you need to work with your React project. So these things are commented, you can actually delete them if you want to. It's not necessarily important. Let me delete them so that you actually see what's inside this HTML file so it doesn't look overwhelming. Okay, now this is React app. This is the title of the app. So if you do run this app, then you're actually going to see that it's actually this HTML file that's actually being rendered in the DOM. Now, let me also take this comment away. Okay, so now we have this no script tag. So if the person's browser doesn't have JavaScript, if your browser doesn't have JavaScript enabled, this no script tag is actually going to pop up to tell you that you need to install or you need to activate your JavaScript to be able to run this website. Now, this div with the ID of root, this is where all the action is actually taking place. So it's actually being referenced from your SRC folder. That's where this root file is being called in. And using JavaScript, everything you're doing is being injected into the root, this root div from the SRC folder. Do you guys understand? Is there any question so far? I hope the questions you asked have been answered. Guys, I beg. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, Michael, what is actually the question? Just type it out. Let's see. Okay. Okay, package lock.json from package.json. Okay, I should explain the roots on the index. Okay. And then what else again? This. Okay. Okay. You guys calm down. It's not confusing. Okay, so we'll go over it again. So first of all, Chidiogo, the package.json and the package lock. Okay. Okay, what differentiates them? Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're asking?
Sorry, can I talk?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, sorry, I understand what you explained about package .json, that it is actually the
Okay.
ones you need, like you're working on that you would that are there, right? But I
Yes.
wanted to know how come this one that has package log.json. I don't get what you said about it.
Okay, so the package lock.json is more like where, um, so like I said, there are a lot of things that are being compiled in the background whenever you're using React. So things like there's something called Webpack. So Webpack is more like a compiler that compiles your code that makes JavaScript and HTML to mix together and work well. And most of all those compilations are actually being put in this package lock.json. Now, if you look at the package lock.json, in fact, the package lock.json is actually very long. Now, you have a lot more things here in the package lock.json than you have in the package.json. That's because the package lock.json is more like where Webpack gives you kind of like a feedback on things that are being installed and the requirements for these installations. So it's more like something that helps you know if your project is not working well after installation, you know what to do and you know where to fix it if you gradually go through your package lock.json file. But since everything we are actually doing is actually being done automatically using create react app, these we don't necessarily need to even look at the package lock.json folder because sorry, the package lock.json file because everything has already been automatically done for us and everything is actually working fine for us using npm. So we don't even have to come here to look if there's actually a problem or something. The only time we're actually going to come here is if we're using something that is out of date and it's not working fine. And then that's when we can actually be referred to this package lock.json file to actually look at what's actually causing the issues and know what to do next. I hope that answers your question. Chidiogo, you could actually, okay, all right, okay,
Yeah,
all
thanks.
right,
Yeah, I said okay, thanks.
all right, yeah. Yes, David, package lock.json is also the same as yarn lock. They are both package managers. Okay, so package lock is actually if you're using npm, then yarn lock is actually if you're using yarn. Okay, they are both package managers and they serve the same purpose. Okay, now, okay, what was the next question? Okay, okay, I think the next question was from this person. Okay, all right, so let me explain this whole HTML document that is inside this public folder. Now, like I said earlier, the public folder is what the user actually sees. Once we run this app and once you run it using localhost and it shows in the browser, we get to see that it's actually this index.html file that is actually rendered to the browser. That's what the browser sees. Now, inside this public folder are things that we actually need, like your favicon and logos. Okay, I think this is just the React logo. And then, okay, the txt file, which is not necessary. We don't necessarily, the only thing that's actually necessary in this whole folder, in this whole public folder at the moment now, is actually this index.html file because that is where everything will be working on is actually going to be reflected. And how will it be reflected? It is reflected through this div that has the ID of root. Now, because everything is actually in the same parent folder, from this SRC folder, you can actually access the public folder and get the root div, this div with the ID of root from the index.html file. I think once you go into this SRC folder, you're going to see that in action. Okay, But for now, all you just have to understand that this index.html folder, this index.html file is the file where everything we're going to be working on is actually inside. And the particular part of the index.html file that contains everything we'll be working with is this div with the ID of root. Okay, that's where everything we're going to work in is going to be inside. I hope that answers your question, Michael. And okay, also best, I hope it's kind of clear a little. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, the root is just like referencing a class in CSS, but this time you're doing it using JavaScript. Yes, that's just how it is. Yes, yarn lock and package lock.json are basically the same thing, the same files, but the fact that you're actually using yarn as your package manager instead of npm. That's why you're having this thing. That's why you're having what's it called? That's why you're having yarn lock instead of package lock. They are both the same thing. Your app is still going to run the same way mine is running. Okay, so don't. It's okay. All right. So moving over to the next folder, which is the SRC folder. Now it is in this folder that all the action takes place. Okay. Now, inside this SRC folder, we have the app.css file, app.js file, app.test.js, index.css, index.js, have logo, report web vitals, setup test. All right, so most of all these, we don't necessarily need them. So the only files I'll be using at the moment is the index.js and app.js. The app.css is actually just a CSS file. I'm actually opening it so that you guys can actually see what's inside. Okay, so it's more like what's not necessarily much though, but just basically what we will use, more like CSS normal, just for the design. Apart from that, nothing much. Now, the major part that we'll actually be focusing on, this is the heart of every React application, the index.js file, because now this is where everything you do is actually going to be called from or will be referenced from. Now, what do I mean? If you look at this index.js, you see that you're importing React DOM. Your index.css is also here, and your app.js is also being imported from the app.js folder, and even these web vitals. Okay, we don't necessarily need the report web vitals at the moment because we are not using it now, so you could actually take it off. But if you're taking it off, you're going to have to delete it here too. So all right, now inside here, now you see that we are trying to get documents to get element by ID root. Now you see this file, this command here, it's referencing this root div from this public folder, the index.html file there. Okay, so that's what it's actually trying to reference. And now it's because of that, that's why everything we do can actually work. Okay, okay, yes, we can actually use Bootstrap with React. And okay, it's not like it's going to be in components or it's going to be like direct usage. First things first, all you have to do is that you have to install Bootstrap using npm. Now, after installing it, you're going to have to import Bootstrap. Okay, so more like there's actually a different documentation for using Bootstrap and React together, because it's not going to be like your regular Bootstrap using HTML and CSS. Now, the way React works, React, it's more like component based. So, okay, all right. I think I could give you a link to Bootstrap's documentation for working with React, so you can actually look through it. But then I'd say you should just chill for now on that one, except if you want to do an extensive study on your own personally. Okay. Now, first things first. React is a component-based library. So what do I mean? React works with little chunks of code. So more like saying every file in React is more like every component in React is more like a separate file that does one thing that can be reused. So components are basically, like the name implies, things that are actually very important that can be reused in different uh, instances. Okay, so the basic components that every React application comes with is the app.js file, and it's inside the app.js that most things are actually inside. Now, this index.js file, everything about React is actually being referenced here, because it's from this index.js file now that we can actually access this index.html using this ID of roots. I hope you guys understood that explanation. So this is the reason why index.js is actually very necessary, because it's more like the root JavaScript file that accesses the index.html file, because that's where everything we are doing is actually going to be referenced. So it's more like trying to make our work more organized. Okay, I hope you guys understood that. Okay,
Yeah.
oh, all right, very well, thank you. Okay, so let me move to the app.js file now. All right, so inside the app.js file, we can see this is a functional component because it's written as a function. Okay, and it's exported here on default. Now, one more thing before I go further, there are some basic, how do I, what's it called? There are some basic extensions you need to use. You need to install on your VS Code to actually help you when working with React. So those are more like things that auto-complete your React code. So one of those things is actually this, yes, 7 React Redux GraphQL React Native snippets. So the way it works is that it helps you write a little bit of code, and then everything you want actually comes out. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you guys how that works. So if you can, you should actually, not if you can, you need to install it, because it's actually going to help make your life a little bit easier with React. Okay, let me see if there's any other one here that I did install that you need to install. Okay, for now there is none. So it's just this one that makes that I did, and it's actually a lot more efficient because it's very easy to work with. Okay, so you guys should actually install that once you, okay, I think if you go to, this is how you can get it. If you type React here, it's actually the first thing you see once you type React in the extensions category. So it is this first one. Once you type React, just install it and you're good to go. Okay, so that's that about that. So I hope you guys understand the basic folder structure of working with React. I hope I don't have to explain further again. Okay, all right, very good. All right, so now since you've actually installed everything, Now we can now start our React application. So we see what we have whenever we work with React. So we could do npm start. Starts up a local development server for us. Now this local development server is more generic to working with okay. All right, so this is it. I think I'll take it take it out of Firefox and let me use Chrome. Okay, so let me turn Firefox off. All right, so this is everything we have. This is basically our React application. Now, if you go back to VS Code, you will find that this is where everything that you see on this page is actually being called from the app.js file. Now, the logo.svg, which is this logo that's spinning here, is actually being called from the uh, app.js file. Now, with that, I think this is it, and then this is the paragraph. Edit the app.js and save and reload, and then this is a link, and then learn React, and this is everything you're seeing the app.js. So that's actually to help you understand that React is actually a component based. So everything is inside this app.js component and it's being linked to this index.js. As you can see, app is here and it's being called from app and app.js, which is still in the same folder as the index.js file. Okay, so I hope that is not too confusing. Okay. Yes, you can do yarn stats if you already have yarn installed. But if you don't have yarn installed, you can do npm start if you have npm installed. Okay. All right. So without further ado, I think it's time for us to start. Well, first of all, before we start, I think I'll be doing a little bit of modifications to what we are. I think I'll be doing a little bit of modifications. So I'll be taking off everything that's inside this app.js uh, inside here. So everything here. Okay, let me just take away from the header. Just delete this, save, and then let's check. Now we have a very blank document. I hope what I did was no magic. I hope you guys understand what I just did now. So we could actually input a h1 and we call this, we just say welcome to first React. Sure. So save this and check. Blessing, could you explain what you mean by how I globally set JavaScript React?
Okay, so what I meant is this. Please, can we go back to the VS Code, sir?
Okay. Okay.
That part of the page, sir, I can't see it now.
Okay, which
Lower
part of the page?
The lower part of the
The lower-
JavaScript page. Yes. Okay, coming.
There's nothing in the lower part actually.
Coming, sir.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes,
Can you see it?
I've seen it. Yes, this no. You don't need to scroll down, sir. The tax bar, master. There is a place that JavaScript is there. If I don't change on my own PC to JavaScript React, yep, it's not going to work. I don't know. Is there any way one can set
Oh,
it
okay.
permanently?
Okay, now the thing is this, it has to do with the extension of what you're working with. If you're using .js, it is actually going to show JavaScript. But if what is in your own is .jsx, it is going to show JavaScript React, and it is completely fine. There is no problem with that. Okay, you don't have to worry or fret about it. Okay, we will be coming to that. Okay, uh, does that answer your question? All right, good. Now, speaking of which, uh, like I said, you use JSX. Okay, like what? Okay, let me actually use this time to point it out now. Blessing, thank you for that question. It actually brings out something very important that I have to talk about. It's called JSX. Now, JSX is actually what I call it the markup language that is used with either React or Vue or Angular, because it's more like saying you're trying to embed HTML inside JavaScript. And if you're trying to embed HTML into JavaScript, some things you do with HTML will not work with JavaScript because JavaScript has its own rules. Okay, and you're going to use HTML inside JavaScript, you have to abide by those rules. Now, one of those rules, if you can see my VS Code, you see that this div has a class of app, but instead of using class, they're using class name. Can anybody tell us why? Does anybody know why this is class name instead of class? Okay, Timberline said because classes is actually reserved, because class actually reserved all the JS. Yes, yes, that's because yes, Timberline is actually correct. Class is actually a reserved word in JavaScript. So, and since React is actually a library built on JavaScript, if you use class here, it is going to return an error. Let me see. If I remove name here and save, and I go back to VS Code now and check, you're going to see an error. Let's refresh. Okay, let's check the console. Okay, let's see. All right, not established connection. Okay, now you see there's a, okay, yeah, you see this warning. It says invalid DOM property class. Did you mean class name? Are you guys seeing this? This is to tell you that class is actually a reserved word in JavaScript, and for you to actually work with React very well, you need to actually take note of that. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go back and control C that save. So everything should be back to normal now. All right. So okay. So that's that about that. So now, since we've actually introduced and discussed how all the folders and the files are in the React, in every React folder directory, how they're actually named. So I think we should step into doing something that's more lively with React. I think, like the name suggests, it's React. So let's try and make React very well, kind of. So first things first. Now, with the way React is, you can actually input JavaScript inside React. Okay, that's just how it is. Because JavaScript and React, the way they are, you could actually input JavaScript into React. Now, what do I mean? Let's say, for example, we have this variable. So we have this variable, let's just say const, and its name. I want to, give the name, give a name. I could just say, okay, let's say blessing. Now, we could dynamically input this value inside here. So how do we do that? We could use a paragraph, and we just say uh, let's just say hello name, and once we save and we go back and check, we should see hello blessing. So I hope that does not look like magic. I hope you guys understand that. All right, very good. Thank God. Okay. Okay. All right. So basically, this is just an example of how classes, how reactive React can be with JavaScript. Now we could do another one. Let's say, for example, we want to show something. Now we could also do something. We could also even write JavaScript inside React like this, as long as we put these curly braces. Okay, it is definitely supposed to work. So just like this. Let's see. Try and think of something we can actually do now. Okay, we could actually show something like conditional statements. Okay, let's see if we can actually do that. So we could just say name. If name is blessing, so if name is blessing, we could actually do this. We just say uh, type something. We say hello blessing, how are you? Then okay, sorry, this is supposed to be question mark here, and else something like I am sorry, I don't know you. All right, so something like this could work. If you save this, since blessing is the name that's used in this constant, it's actually going to return hello blessing, how are you? If we go back and check it, you see hello blessing, how are you? Or if we actually change this name to, let's say we add s blessings, and we go back and check, it like sorry, I don't know you. And now this is something we can't do with normal HTML, but we could do something like this with React, because it's always using React, it's actually kind of dynamic. We could do things like conditional rendering. So you're going to find this more helpful, especially when you're calling APIs. You know, with APIs, React could actually make calling of APIs a whole lot more interesting and very easy to work with. Okay, so if you understood what I just did, you could just indicate by saying yes or typing it in the chat section, so I know you guys understand this very well. All right, very good. That's perfect. All right. All right. So now, on to the next thing. We'll be discussing components. I think I'll be going to components, so I can actually explain what components are. So, like I said, components are actually little chunks of code that we use. Okay. Components are actually little chunks of code that we actually use to, make our life a lot more easier. So let's say, for example, we are building a website and we are building a blog, and in that blog, is there an issue? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's say, for example, we are creating a blog, and we in that blog we want to show a list of blogs. Let's say, for example, we want to show a list of blogs. A list of blocks is actually a component that can actually be reused at anywhere. So we could actually use a list of blocks as a categories to show the types of blocks that we have. We also use a list of blocks to show how many blocks are actually in a particular category and all. So to do that, uh, all we could actually do is we could create now this way we could create a JavaScript file inside here, and I'll call this blog list. Now, one thing about the uh, naming convention for components is actually okay. It's not camel casing, but then it starts with a capital letter. So, is it blog list? But yes. Now, assuming I add X here, just X, and I press enter. Now, blessing, if you look down at my VS Code, you're going to see JavaScript React here. So this is what I was trying to explain to you. That the reason why you are seeing JavaScript React there was because the extension at the end of your file was JSX. Okay, but if I edit it and change it to JS, we're going to see just JavaScript there. So I hope that's clear. Now that's how it actually works. Okay, now I'm going to create a React snippet here, and I'm going to say, all right, to do that, I'll be typing some shortcuts. So the reason why is that because it's actually a lot more easier for me, and it's thanks to this extension again, this ES7 React. So if you haven't installed it, install that extension. It's actually very useful. So I'm going to create a functional component. To create a functional component, I'll be typing RAFCE. So it's actually going to be an arrow function, RAFCE, and enter. And you see that it creates this boiler template code for me here using React. Now inside here, I could just make a H1. H1 is going to say, welcome to my blog. Now save. Now this is not actually going to show yet because we haven't imported it to any file or folder where it's actually going to show. So to do that, we could actually come down here and say import. What are we importing? We're importing block list. So we say block list. Once I type enter, it's actually going to do everything for me. So it shows imports block list from block list. So, and I could just come down here and write a div and call this block list. Okay, now if I save this and we go back to the browser and we check, we're going to see welcome to my blog here. Let me take all of this away so you guys can actually see what I just did. Right, so this is what I just did. All right, so I hope you guys understand what I just did. All right, nice. I like the fact that it's actually interesting. So from what you're doing, I hope you see that now that React is not as difficult as you use. Okay, what's the shortcut you use? Now I said the shortcut I use. Let me type it. It's REFCE. That's the shortcut I use. But to use this shortcut, you need to have. Okay, Akimbowola, just hold on 1 minute. To use this shortcut, you need to have this extension installed. It's called ES7 React. So how you get the extension is by just typing React. Type React on your extension search list. It's the first extension that's actually going to come out, so you can actually download it from there and use it. It helps a lot. Okay, so Akim Bubola, your question.
I don't understand where that where you why you added that or the blog posts like the closing tag
Okay,
because there was no opening tag for it.
okay, like why it's actually a closing tag, Abi? Akim Bubola, I can't just confirm. Is it why it's actually a self-closing tag or why it doesn't have a closing tag? Which one?
Yes, why does it have a closing tag? We didn't open its number in this HTML,
Okay.
so why do you have to close it?
Okay. Now, let me explain. Now, this is how components actually work with React. So, not just React, Angular, Vue, and other frameworks like Nuxt.js and Next.js. Now, this blog list is a component, and now this is the component. Now, this is where the file is. Now, everything that's here that's been exported from this blog list, and I imported it here. This is how it shows. Now, if this is not here, whatever it is I typed in this blog list.js will not show. Okay. Now, about the self-closing tag, this is just a convention. I could actually do this like this and do blog list and close it like this, and it will still work either way. Okay, it will still work. It's still going to show welcome to my blog. Now, but as developers, being who we are, sometimes we could be lazy. So using this self-closing tag is actually more preferred. It's more preferred actually. So why will I actually have to go through the steps of creating an opening tag and a closing tag when I can just use just a self-closing tag and it's still going to do the same thing for me? So I don't know if you get that logic.
Thank you very much, sir. I understand. Yeah, I understand.
All right. All right, so now Chidiogo, the reason why we are actually including the blog list in the app.js is because now the app.js for your React application to work very well, like I said, if you go to, okay, let me inspect element and show you guys something. All right, so if I inspect elements now, you guys are actually going to see that everything is inside the body tag. Now, inside the body tag, everything is inside this roots, this div with the ID of roots. If you open it now, that's where you now see this div with the class of app. And then inside it, that's where you now have this ID with the H1. So now, how it works is that because blog list is a component, whatever is inside blog list has to be exported and imported to app.js because app.js is actually linked to index.js. Now, we could actually remove this blog list from here. Okay, we could remove it from here like this like so. And then we come down to app.js and we still import it. It's still going to work. Okay. Now we could do this like this. We say import uh, blog lists from uh, from blog lists. So still come here and like blog lists. It's still going to work. Okay. Save this and it's still going to work. It's still the same thing. Now the only difference is that now it's no longer calling from the app.js. Now it's actually calling from this folder. But there's always a convention. It's always very good to actually pass everything through app.js. So whenever there's an issue, you know where you're actually debugging from, so that we can actually make index.js less crowded. If everything is actually being displayed on index.js, it's not going to be nice. It's going to make it look a whole lot messy. So that's the reason why I actually like using app.js. Basically, for best practice, it's also very good to use app.js. Okay, that's the reason why I'm using app.js. All right, I hope I was able to convince you, not confuse you. Okay, let's save this. We are back. So, Chidiogo, I hope that answered your question, or if there's still something you don't understand. All right, okay, very good. All right, now, so like I was saying, now this is how components actually work. So you create a component file. Mind you, create your component file. It has to create your component file. The component file has to start with a capital letter. All components, if you look at them, you see that they start with capital letter. App.js starts with a capital letter. This blog list I just created also starts with a capital letter because they are all components. Okay. Now that's how you know a component. It has to start with a capital letter. Okay, so it's not just regular camel casing. Okay, now after that, after creating the file and then you've exported whatever content that's inside, then you can now actually come down here and import it into your app.js, which will in turn be imported into from it's going to be imported into the index.js file. Okay, so I hope you guys understand that. All right, so we'll be moving on to the next thing, which is supposed to be uh, how to use CSS with React. So before I move, if you have a question, I think now be the best time to ask you a question. If in case you have anything that's actually bothering you or something that's not very clear, you could actually just ask that now before we move on. Any questions? Any questions? No questions. Okay, so in the absence of any questions, I move forward. We move. So the next thing we're actually going to talk about is uh, how to add styling to your React app. So if you guys actually notice from the start, everything we've been doing, it's like, okay, everything we've been doing has always been like at the center. Okay, hold on, guys. Let me do something. All right, so if I refresh this, all right, very good. everything we've been doing has actually been at the center because app.css has a styling of its own. Okay. Now, the way it actually works, this app.css, and there are two CSS files. Yes, there are two CSS files. The first is app.css. The second is index.css. Now, this index.css is more like the global style for everything you're actually doing, because you see that it actually affects our font family. Meanwhile, the only thing that app.css actually does is just affecting the app.js. Now, you can actually choose to delete the app.css file and leave the index.css, because that's like the only one that's actually global. So if you're actually building a small scale React project that's not much, and you just need one CSS file normally, which we usually use, yes, you can use just the index.css for that, and you're going to be okay. Now, the way the CSS is actually being called, if you check the head folder, you see that we have two style sheet tags in the head of our project. The that's where our app.css and our index.css are actually being hosted. Okay, that's where they're actually injected. So that's where they actually affect the browser, or they affect what you're doing. But the one that has the more global precision more is the index.css file. So we could actually delete the app.css, and we could still use the index.css very well, okay? But then it might not necessarily, or how do I put it? For best practice, it's actually very good to actually use only one. I think the first one here should be, yes, the first one is actually the index.css, and then the second one should be the app.css. Okay, so you could actually come down here and delete this app.css file here. All right, this is just to show you guys that either way, it's not really necessary. The only one that's very most important here is the index.css. Okay, so I could just come down here and delete this. Since the file is no longer there, there's no need keeping that import there. So once you save, you see that we have just uh, one style sheet, one style tag left, which is an inline tag. Okay, so whatever it is that we do here will actually work. So I will go ahead and go to a browser reset here, do something like this. Do something like this too. Okay, so if I actually do this and we check, we can find that yeah, everything has actually scooched down to the left. And then we could actually say for body, we want body to have a text align center. If you do this and save, you see that it has moved down to the center. So I hope you guys are seeing what I'm doing. I hope it doesn't look like magic. If there are any questions, you guys can, don't feel shy to ask a beg, so you guys understand, because you're understanding it means that what I'm saying is actually entering. Okay, so basically that's just how you use CSS. Yeah, yes, similar. Speak up. So
Sorry, like that selector you used. Can you please explain it?
Oh, this selector, you guys should already be familiar with this selector by now. This is, which of the selector are you talking about? This one I use down. This
The
one,
Yeah, then the asterisk after and before or something.
okay, okay. So this is more like, this is still global reset. Okay, this is the usual global reset you usually do. Now the only thing is that I am actually adding some things. Now what I'm adding here is this pseudo class called the after pseudo class and the before pseudo class. Okay. Uh, is this the part that's actually confusing you?
Yeah, like yeah.
Okay. Now the after, like, basically the asterisks, you guys all should know that the asterisk is supposed to affect the asterisk is actually supposed to affect all elements. It can work alone. Thank you, God, for that. Yes, it can work alone. But most times I prefer using it like this because every element has a pseudo class, an after pseudo class, and a before pseudo class. And those before and after pseudo classes, depending on the kind of element it is, if it's a block element, that pseudo class is actually going to come with a default margin and padding of its own. So, which means if to actually do it and do it very well, being thorough is what I'm just doing here, adding this now. Okay. I don't know if you understand.
I understand,
It's
I
just
understand.
a,
Yeah, thank you.
yes, so it's just a preference. So you can decide to either use just the asterisk alone, or you can decide to add the after and before. It doesn't necessarily matter. They both still do the same thing. Okay. Okay. So what other question is there? Who else also has a question? Okay. So I'm thinking all your questions have actually been
Sorry,
answered. Okay. Yes.
sorry. Like, how can we use Bootstrap with React?
Okay, so at this point in time, asking how you can use Bootstrap with React is trying to fly when you have not started to run yet. Okay, so I know you all have the experience with using Bootstrap, but then using Bootstrap with React is not just like using any other CSS library. So it comes with JavaScript, and most times it also comes with its own inbuilt components. Okay, so using Bootstrap with React, you definitely need to go through a tutorial video on how to use it. Okay, so I can actually give you a link on. I could give you a link to a tutorial you could actually watch on how to use Bootstrap with React if that's what you want. But then I think you should focus on trying to grasp the fundamentals for now because you don't understand the fundamentals. Trying to use Bootstrap and React together, Ross, it will choke you. Okay, so but for now, just calm down, understand these fundamentals for now. I think maybe in the next class, I'll show you guys how Bootstrap and React work together. We'll try to build something with that, okay? If that's okay.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, okay, so well, I hope you guys actually know how to use CSS with React now because it's just basically like every other thing. So I could just come here and add a div and say for that div, let the color be green. Okay, it basically works the same way. So I think which div, yeah, if you go back and check this out, you see that there's a green because this is inheritance. If you check this out, div has a color of green, even this one has a color of green, and down to the end, they have the color of green. So this is going to get affected. So I hope you guys actually understand how using CSS and this Yes, you can call a class name. So let me even do something here. I can call this, I can say class name. Let's do this. Let's say call this header. Okay. So I can call here and say uh header and just say font size, with the font size of 40 pixels. Save. So if you check, you see it has a font size of 40 pixels already added to it. So it's actually decrease or increase more. See that it's actually working fine. So right. So basically that's how that works. Now I think I'll be moving on to something a little bit more, what I say, tedious. So we'll be looking at how to handle things like click events on, okay, handling click events in React. So let's say, for example, uh, okay, let's say we want to change, okay, let's just say like I did the first time. Uh, we have this, sorry, const, we have name and give name a, okay, name, let's just say John, and want to handle a click event. So how do we do that? Let's use a button, and click. Next thing we're actually going to do, so on click. So on click is actually going to, is actually has a different convention in React, like you guys have seen. So most attributes in React are actually camel cased. So if I try to say on click now, on click is actually going to be capital letter instead of the normal hyphen and click. Okay, or sorry, just the normal click. It's not going to work like that. It's actually going to be all caps. And then instead of equal to and then the quotes, it's going to be uh, parentheses. Okay. Now, the way it works, it's more like you referencing something. So we create a function here. Create a function. So I'll call it handle click. Handle click. Okay, so this handle click, this is more like a naming convention in React. So most times, whenever you're trying to create a function, especially something that has to do with a click event, it's more like you more like say handle this particular event. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So let's say, for example, we're trying to handle a click event now. So you're going to be like, okay, handle click. If it's a hover event, you could like handle hover. I don't know if you understand that kind of, it's a naming convention we use in React. You could actually call it anything you want, but then it's basically a lot more easier to call it this way. I mean, this is how the community has actually grown. So that's what everybody calls it. So you just get used to it. But sometimes when you go to look for solutions online, you see that this is the particular naming convention they use. So you could actually use anything, but then this is what I prefer to use. So using an arrow function, all right, so I'm going to say on click, what I want to happen is on the console.log name is going to be equal to click. All right, so save this, and then inside here, now we reference this function we just created because we want this function to actually be called whenever we click this button. So we could actually just say, just reference it like this, and we are good. Okay. All right, so let's check this out. All right, console. Okay, I'm coming. Sorry, I think I have to use let here because I'm actually going to change this value. Okay, with a sign. Okay, okay. Let's see what equals this. Okay. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Now, button. Okay, let's see. This is supposed to show the. Okay, so okay. I think I haven't put something inside the button yet, so I would say click need to change name. So save this, and yep, this is it. Okay, so right, so first things first, we want to console log name. Okay, so once you click on this, all right, you see that John and week actually shows. Now, let's do something. Let's take this off and put this outside so we see the difference. So, okay, John is showing here now, and this blog page, if we refresh this, we see John. Now, if we click on this, name changes to week. If we keep clicking, it still changes to week. I hope this. Okay, I know this is kind of this is kind of confusing, but then let me do something a lot more visible that you guys will understand. Okay, so uh, let's do this. Let me see. Let's count equal to 0. Now, click want this to be count plus plus. Right, so I think this is a whole lot more feasible. So if you go back, so once we click on this, let's refresh. Count was initially set to 0 here, so which means if we console log count, console count, see that count is actually 0. This is 0. But if we click on this button, you see that count is actually going to be incremented by 1 all through. So now, do you guys actually understand what I just did? How the click event actually worked? Please, if you understood, raise your hand. Let me know I'm not doing or going too much or going too far. Okay, so I'm guessing you guys actually understood what I just did. All right, so basically this is how a click event actually works. Also, we could do more with click events basically, but the basic principle with click events is this: whenever you handle a click event, you have to reference it. You don't necessarily have to put this parenthesis here. No, don't put it. If you put it, it's like you calling the function directly from there, and it will not work. Okay. I think our time is almost up, so I will just do one more thing. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to use states using use state hooks. Okay, so one of the most interesting things you can ever learn in React is knowing how to use states. Trust me, it is going to be very interesting. Okay, now how does use states work? Okay, first of all, let me take away this handle click. Okay, we might still use the handle click later. Now, let's take this away. And to use this, okay, we use this. First things first, we want to importing use state from React. Now, this is how state actually using use states. This is how it works. So, you first of all, the structure what you actually want to work with. And let's say, for example, we want to set name. Okay, want to set name and something that I want to show in the DOM. Let's say, for example, want to create a variable. Let's just put p, and we say uh, say hello name. Now, say name and then set name. Okay, it's going to be equal to use state, and it's going to take an initial value. Now, the initial value is actually going to that it's going to take is going to be what is the value of this name. Now, let's say, for example, okay, okay, can you guys hear me now very clearly? Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so you're saying you don't know how I got to use states, Abi? Okay, so let me explain this. Let me explain. Let me explain very well. Let me do it again. Let me delete this. Uh, okay, delete this. Now, what I did was this. First things first, I said to use states. Use states. See, it's state management actually. So it's more like handling data in React. And to handle data in React, one of the things you need to be conversant with is use state. Now, use state is a very interesting part in React. Now, so the first thing you need to do to be able to use state is to first of all import it. Okay, so you have to import the type use state. The autocomplete actually complete it for you. Now, after doing this, the next thing you need to do, since you're using use state is actually a hook. So for use state to work, first of all, use state takes in two arguments first. First thing, let's say you want to try to change someone's name. You say name and then set name. It's going to be called to use state. And then let's say the first name we want to use. Now, in this parenthesis could take in any particular argument at all. Either it could be a string, a number, an object, an array. But I don't think it can take in booleans or so. Okay, it can actually, or it can also take in boolean too. Okay, so let's say for example, I want to change the name. Let's say John. This is the name. Now, to actually make this work, we need to handle this event. Let's say click here to change my name. Now here you could actually say hello name. So to actually change this now. Okay, I don't know if you guys are understanding what I'm doing here. Let's see. Let's save this first. If you understand what I'm actually doing at the moment, please just put your hands up so I know I'm actually carrying you guys along. Do you guys actually understand how I got to that point? How I got to here? Guys, we don't necessarily have much time, so if you can hear me, please just say so.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, so which means you guys are actually following with what I'm doing, right?
I'm following. I don't fully understand. When you're done, I'll know if I understand or not. That's why I kept quiet.
Okay.
I saw you
Okay.
call the function, you state and all that, and there. So I'm watching.
Okay. All right. So this is what we'll do. Okay, so I'm trying to actually show you guys how to handle data in React using use state. Now, use state is actually one of those fundamentals of React which you need to understand. But I think I'll be sending you guys links to other resources that you guys can actually use to watch within the week. Okay. This is where I'll be stopping for today, so I don't get to bore you guys with too much information. Basically, our classes are usually for 2 hours. So now to use state, there are always two values needed. First thing, okay, first things first. The first thing you need to do is this. The first thing you need to do is this. It's more like destructuring. This is what it's called. So the first parameter here, name, is actually this John. Okay, and then this second parameter here is actually what we'll actually be using to set this guy. I don't know if you guys are understanding, but if not, I think I will drop a tutorial later on for you guys in the resources channel where you guys can actually go and read get to know more about states. Okay, so first of all, let's see. Okay, unexpected use of name, no restricted globals, set name is not defined. Okay, use of name. All right, so let's try and debug our code. Okay, so let's see, handle click. It's going to be set name. Report to, let's change this to week.
I have a question.
Okay, hold on, I will answer your question. Okay. All right, so Yogo, is that you raising your hand?
Yes.
Okay. All right, go on. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Okay, I wanted to know if the stroke or the slash on, rather the stroke on the name, is it when you type it automatically strokes it, or you did something there? When you're
Okay, the stroke.
the parameters you're passing, the name
Yeah,
before the set name.
yeah. Okay, the stroke on the name actually, that's actually an error which I'm trying to fix. Okay,
Okay.
the stroke on the name is actually an error I'm trying to fix. Okay, so I don't really know why it's giving me that error. So just give me a moment. Okay. Papa, see, I'm not really sure if that's the case, but then something is actually wrong, and that's what I'm trying to find out. Okay, okay, I think I have seen my error. I made a very silly mistake, a very, very silly one. So I was supposed to do this first. Const set name is equal to this. Yeah. So let me take this off and save. So if we go back here, you're going to see hello John. Okay, first of all, let's see who doesn't understand what's going on at the moment. Now just raise your hand so we can clarify it and move on very fast. So let me explain fully. If you don't understand, please just put your hands up so I'll start all over again. Okay. Okay, Chidiogo. All right. Who else again doesn't understand? Okay, so let me start all over again. All right, so I'm just going to try to rush this so we understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so first things first, in order to use useState, you have to import useState, which is what I did here. I imported useState from React. Now, to use useState, you have to declare it first. So that's what I did. The reason why we're getting that error is because I forgot to add const. I don't know why I was so silly. So first of all, it's more like declaring a variable. Like remember what we did with array destructuring that time, where you say you can actually use this and get variable names together. So const name, set name. Now this set name, this is actually a naming convention. I could change this to age. I could say set age. So this naming convention actually stays kind of like stagnant. Age, set age. If it's food, it's going to be set food and whatever. So I hope you guys understand that. Now set name. Now this first name, this name here is what is going to be the value of name. So if I say hello name, it means this name here, which is this one here, that's what's going to show here. So if I go to the browser and check it out, you're going to see hello John. All right. So if you actually go back to this and say, okay, fine, I want to handle this click, I want to change this name. So how you actually do it is saying set name. I'm going to change it to something else. Let's say change it to week. Okay, sorry about that. And change it to week. And if we save this, now if we go back and we click on this, okay, there's actually an issue. All right, there's actually an issue. Okay, guys, I think I'm actually going to have to stop the class now because of, let me see, I'm giving messages I have to finish on time. So I need to stop the class now. But then I think on Slack, we'll actually have to reschedule for another class on Saturday. So you guys will actually have to pick the time and then we'll continue from here on Saturday. I beg you, pardon me for this one. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right, please just pardon me on this one for now. I think Python class is about to start. So on Saturday, you guys should just deliberate, set a time, and then let me know. So we'll actually fix the class on Saturday, if that's okay. All right, so I think I will be stopping the class now. So okay, I think I ended the class for now. So
Okay, yeah, so thank you. Thank you very much, Franklin. Thank you, everyone. So please let's remember the announcement I made before the class started. Let's just make sure we actually do what is needful. And if you have challenges, please just reach out to your mentor. Okay, thank you.